Hey there, everybody. I'm Lucas Martell. I'm the creator of Walkabout Mini Golf, and here we are in our newest course, the Temple at Zerzura. So come on out. I'll give you a little tour. People have been wanting to play mini golf in ancient Egypt, and we're not necessarily trying to be totally historically accurate, but we did want it to feel like a real place and like you're actually in ancient Egypt as opposed to just the mini golf version of that. So we actually went back. A lot of the temple that we built is actually loosely based on the temple of Ramses II. So again, even though we're not trying to be historically accurate, there are some architectural similarities. The course itself is set in Zerzura, which is a fictional place that has a whole lot of different theories behind it. One of the defining features, though, the entrance to the city were these two giant black statues. We did some work on them to make them look like obsidian if you get a little bit close. Yeah, as you can see, you start out in the desert, you get a great view of the temple. This is hands down the largest course that we have ever made. If you're in Egypt looking at these, the sheer scale of what was built is super impressive. So we wanted to echo that with the environment that we're in and just give you this sense of like grandeur, even though it's still mini golf. This is also the largest course from a playable standpoint as well. As you are at, you might notice that the play style of this course is a little different. There's a lot more big tee shots. There's a lot of just generally bigger holes. We kept the design fairly simple, fairly rectilinear, but that allowed us to blow everything up because we found that once we added just the sheer size of this temple, that you really needed to be able to fill it up with the actual play space. Yeah, even though Labyrinth is so large, I think this dwarfs even Labyrinth, especially in terms of the actual playable space. Also, if you go up into God mode, the desert out there is pretty vast. I won't give any spoilers. The fox sent me send you out into the desert. If you want to wander and get lost in the desert, it's pretty easy to do that. We wanted to feel like, oh, that maybe this was something that was built and then abandoned in the near distant past. So we have a lot of this construction equipment, which was one of the other really great details of just actually looking into some of the construction techniques. We also just looked at a lot of references, especially trying to pull the colors, especially of all of the hieroglyphs and everything. There's some really distinct dyes and colors that they used that if you ever look at some papyrus or even some of the restored things that you'll see in certain museums, like I know at the New York Met, the Metropolitan Museum of Art, they've got a really large Egyptian wing, and a lot of the colors were pulled straight from this painting, so being fairly accurate with all of the dyes and different things that they were using. I will say the hieroglyphs don't necessarily mean anything. In fact, we intentionally scrambled them a bit just so that we didn't accidentally say something that we didn't intend. But I guess maybe I shouldn't say that. Maybe I should just let people try to read into it as much as they want. It's hard to get on video, but yeah, when you're actually standing here, just the sheer size of this place is definitely the thing that catches your eye most of all. We just walked past hole number 6. We're coming up here to the throne room for holes 7 through 9. But yeah, the story of Zerzura, the lost city of Zerzura, is that, yeah, it was a white city at the edge of an oasis. I mentioned the black statues that guard the entrance. We loosely pulled from that. There's a lot of different theories, a lot of different ideas of what Zerzura is or was. Unlike some of the other cities, this one almost definitely did not exist. We had a lot of fun, and like I mentioned, going with that idea that it's been recently abandoned gave us reason to keep, we wanted to keep like all of the cloth, like the silks blowing in the wind, and we can actually have fire and a couple of those things. So it's always something that we're thinking about, but not trying to overthink in terms of like, you know, why is this or isn't this place inhabited? Because it's also mini golf. So we feel like we could take a little bit of license there. So I'll lead you into holes 10 through 10 and 11 in here. This was absolutely an invention, something that we just had to do. Because we were playing with scale, we realized, okay, we have to do the map room. So you can probably guess we had some inspiration there. But yeah, we felt, oh, if you're playing in the giant temple, you have to, we have to let you put to the little miniature version. So we had some fun coming up with this. And one of the other big themes for gameplay around the entire course is this sand, that the sand becomes an obstacle, and it really contrasts nicely where sand creates shortcuts around. It really adds an interesting gameplay challenge. Tony, our lead lighter, did a fantastic job on this course. It really went, just looking at how this course was when it was in model with this temp lighting and just taking it all the way where you get these beautiful shafts of light, and just really, it really does feel like a real place, even though it's so low poly. And yeah, we did a decent bit of trying to capture these really long, tall, skinny windows that sort of like let in these shafts of light. Starting to think more about lighting even earlier on in the process has really helped a lot, makes things just so much more cinematic, and we've now even started designing from the very get-go of like where the light source is going to be. So this is hole 10 and 11. We're coming up to hole 12. I am not an Egyptologist, but from just the little bit of reading we did, we're in these catacombs that this would be where the priests in the temple would have been passing through on their way to the central area where they would be performing ceremonies. So one of the things that we were trying to capture with all this is that this feels a bit more like the priest class, the royalty. There's definitely a lot more objects in here. And this is also serves as, oh, this is how you would be getting, this is how royalty and priests would be coming in and out of the temple. So we tried to create some ideas of how this would actually function if this were a real place. One of the things that we played around with a little bit was more of a lot of the stuff that people think of as the more Egyptian things, like, oh, like trapdoors and spiky traps and all that sort of stuff. We played around with a couple of those ideas, and ultimately what we found was that there was something that was even a little bit cooler about being a bit more, again, we're not being super accurate, but being a bit more accurate and trying to just really capture what some of these places were actually like. This is one of the great things about VR, is that you can actually feel like you're in one of these real places without actually having to go all the way over to Egypt to stand in some of the still standing temples and everything over there. But yeah, big designs were very much about, size and especially verticality. As priests were walking through these side hallways, these were designed to give you a sense of awe and a sense of like passing through into a spiritual realm, which is the story behind those really tall, skinny doors. And we just found that was it just gives you a really unique sense when you're walking through these. So, of course, we were able to play around with some of the different. We had to get the pyramids there, and we're still able to capture a lot of the iconography that people want in that Egypt mini golf course. While again, trying to straddle that line between being somewhat realistic and not grossly misrepresenting anything, but also still being able to have some fun with it. So one of the other big things that we really wanted, because Zerzura is a city on the oasis, we really wanted to integrate water, which is something that you normally wouldn't have to this extent, but that was definitely one of the liberties that we took that just felt, oh, we can make up a little bit. So adding a few of the water obstacles, it also just creates a really nice contrast between that harsh, dry desert. I mentioned the lighting earlier. One of the things that we spent a decent bit of time on was just trying to push it to give you that sense of, oh, that this is like a sun-bleached, everything is just hot when you step outside. But to contrast that, it's really nice to get into these back corridors where you've got cooler lighting. We wanted it to feel somewhat naturalistic, but also push things into, it's natural, but it also has a bit of a theatrical sense. And some of that came into the actual design, where we intentionally cut, or we chose where we were going to place some of these windows to allow light to cast certain shadows onto the ground. We are able to push that a decent bit. But yeah, and then the other big thing, which we're actually coming up to right here as you come to hole 17, was this idea that you're in these cooler sections to give you a nice sort of like break from the harsh sunlight. But then as you come out towards 18, we really wanted that big moment where you finally arrive in this giant courtyard that you've had glimpses of the entire time. And we really wanted that to really capture that hot sun bleach, just a little bit blown out. Embrace that, because it needs to feel like a hot sort of 10, 11 a.m. feel. I mentioned the scale. 17 and 18 are both great examples of, yeah, these are holes that would easily be the largest hole on almost any of our other courses. And we just really embrace that, and makes the play style of Zerzura really unique. The reflections are also, we're using some new techniques there too, to actually get things to reflect more accurately using some box projections. It's, yeah, with each course, it seems like we always find a couple of new techniques that we add to our arsenal, and they end up popping up on almost every course thereafter. So even like when we first added like all the windy plants, I think that was for Coyote Valley that we first did that. Now having that system in place, we're so much more able to do that with just everything across the board. And one of the other things that we decided, again, this was us very much taking some liberties in terms of making this courtyard filled with water like this, but we wanted you to end up in just this sense of a massive amount of space. And because we were being a bit more accurate, we decided we need everyone to go through a pyramid at some point. So we decided to save that for hole 18 and really build a hole around this smaller, but still something that you can walk through a pyramid, just so you still get that, it's such a iconic thing that you just have to get in there. Yeah, so the pyramid here is hole 18.